folks watching and listening. My name is Adil Ilyas. I lead our global business for insurance at Genpact. I'm very excited about this conversation with Bob, who wears two hats. One of them is the CIO of Americas for Tokio Marine, and the second one is he's also the deputy CITO for the group company. Very excited to have this conversation because Bob and I have known each other for at least over 5 years, and I've seen him go and take technology and AI and automation and digital transformation to a very different level. So what we're going to expand on today really is, a research done by us, a lot of learnings coming out of that, and how we've seen a diverse set of ideas and current state reality that majority of the insurers are talking about, from AI thinking to practical to theory standpoint. So with that, Bob, love for you to introduce yourself.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thanks, Adil. I appreciate being here. Yeah, and I do have those two hats. The first one being CIO Tokio Marine North America, which is a decent chunk of Tokio Marine's business in the U.S. and other areas. And then my night job, as you said, is as Group Deputy CIO for Tokio Marine Group Worldwide, where I work with my CIO colleagues around the world to try and see how to seize those opportunities where we can work together. And make sure that we're thinking collectively. So the global things we do are really designed to enhance what our local group companies are doing, and AI certainly is a great example of that, as well as some of our digital and technology initiatives where we work together globally to try and enhance what we're doing locally. So thanks for having me.
No, Bob, I can commend on the big task that you have on hand when you're engaging with global entities as part of Tokio Marine, which have different set of challenges, different environments from a regulatory standpoint, and pulling all of that together is not an easy task. So kudos to you and the job that you're doing at Tokio Marine. In our study, like almost 69% of our respondents kind of agreed that there is adoption to AI, right? I want to double click on that a little bit and say AI is nothing without having data in place, right? And I've always believed that we have a step methodology where data is kind of the foundation of everything on top of that we try to drive, be it automation, be it transformation of digital, or just AI, and then in future agentic AI, right? So what's been your approach over the last many years that you have broken this down for Tokio Marine? How have you got people on board on data, and especially because you have these many entities operating, in a very different environment?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think that there are many challenges, but the two biggest issues I see for the insurance industry as it relates to generative AI are, one, the condition of data. So let's just call that data engineering and all the things from governance on up that are necessary. And then at the other end is auditability. Anything we do in a regulated transaction, we have to be able to show our work, not just right then, but 5 years later, even further out than that. So with classic AI, you have a data set and an algorithm, and you could rerun that now or 100 years from now, you get exactly the same answer. With generative or new AI, you might get a slightly different answer. It sort of all depends. And can you freeze the foundation model you're using? Are the items that you're ragging in exactly the same? The patterns, the intricate patterns, and I always take a moment to call out that this is not actual intelligence. This is really sophisticated pattern identification and then pattern recreation. There are issues with it, but whenever you're letting something basically consume all of your data or a huge chunk of your data, all sorts of issues can come out based upon data quality, data cleanliness, including those things that you never even knew were in that data set. So I view data engineering for a while in the first year of generative AI, 2023, of commercialized generative AI, I should say. Prompt engineering got so much press, and I still agree with that. Prompt engineering is both art and science. But year two in 2024, it was all about the data. And I think that's a huge challenge, but also an opportunity for impetus to really begin to tackle some long-standing data issues that we have as an industry, but also, of course, as we have as individual carrier or MGA companies out there.
And I would just say this, I think we are in future as well, we're going to see a lot of such shoots coming off of the way automation came off, or AI or Gen AI or agentic AI. All of them are going to kind of keep us busy with thinking about them and applying them. But at the root of it is going to be how effectively and accurately we are leveraging the data that comes in and stays with us. So I think that's spot on. What do you think, Bob, is, because ultimately I think success of this is adoption, right, and implementation. And are there specific markets or specific customers at the back end who are more easy to kind of get adoption on the AI front?
That's interesting, because I think a lot of the AI adoption, and I'll just speak not Tokio Marine specifically, but throughout insurance, a lot of it has been on the policyholder customer service end through much more sophisticated chatbots and better FNOL ingestion, those sorts of things, as well as in the traditional sales and marketing front, cross-sell, upsell, language identification, sentiment analysis for call centers, those sorts of things. And I think that's almost table stakes now. It doesn't all have to be generative AI and NLP powered, but there's a lot of goodness there that a policyholder would see and external folks would see. In terms of relationships, though, with trade partners, agents and brokers, but I think there are new options and opportunities in that space that reduce friction between all the different trade partners in the insurance chain. And I think that potentially is highly valuable. It also gives us an opportunity with such generational changeover happening, not only in our industry, but especially in our industry, to capture knowledge in new ways and distill insights from our even underwriting guidelines, and even looking at policies that have been underwritten, how they were underwritten, why were they successful in the goals that were set out for appetite, et cetera, and actually using generative AI to distill those insights. Those are some great opportunities that we see inklings of happening around the group and around the industry. And the other one I have to say selfishly as a technologist is internal with technology. Doing your code archaeology, as I call it, with generative AI, being able to generate requirements from code, test cases and test data from requirements, et cetera. I think those are really, really helpful. I'm very bullish on what agentic will evolve into once, especially, we solve the auditability issue. Agentic used to be like the key part of it was autonomous. And now a lot of agentic is, I'm going to go out and do something and come back to the human, but I'm going to do it in series. I'm going to maintain and even grow my context step by step. I may be able to use a different foundation model for each step, using the example of a claims adjuster. Claims adjuster sometimes needs to think like a lawyer, sometimes needs to think like an auto mechanic, sometimes needs to think like an architect. So having certain steps in an adjustment agent that are able to go out and use a medical foundation LLM versus an automotive foundation LLM and maintain that context, absolutely cool stuff.
I would extend that to say, when, and it's not too far away, we have exactly the picture that you painted on agentic agents across, let's say, a claims value chain, right? Performing various different steps or parts of the steps, and then talking to each other, have to have the human over the loop rather than in the loop, and that would probably be a great state for us to be in.
However, we have to figure out how to audit that and how to make sure that all that data is collected and that it is valid 5 years from now versus right at that moment. So I just wanted to say I'm very bullish on that, especially the pace in agentic growth and technology is really increasing. We just have to work out the kinks and make sure that we have auditability, repeatability in those steps before that human can begin to fade away a little bit.
I mentioned the study that we did. One of the big pieces that stood out for me particularly, Bob, as I was trying to break the analysis of the study down, was just in terms of how IT modernization, which is largely a big mandate for the leadership, the CIO, the CTO, etc., also plays the role of embedding bringing in AI into the mix. What have you seen in terms of this particular, I would say, mandate play out in Tokio Marine?
Because we have so many companies that are in different states and needs with regard to digital technology, business process optimization, local market pressures, regulatory pressures, there really is no one size that fits all of our companies. The markets are inherently different. The products we sell in markets are inherently different. But that said, there certainly is extreme interest in how AI, and when I say AI, I mean that inclusive of classic AI ML as well as generative AI, and maybe even throw in kind of automation there, intelligent automation as well, just very, very large, about how it can help us either deliver better service, bring products to market, and of course also contain our expenses and those sorts of things. We really respect that each of our group companies has autonomy within their market to do the right things for their business, and that goes through the full stack of technology, digital solutions, business solutions, etc. That said, much like cloud before it, and obviously cloud is still very much with us, but in the early days of cloud, there was a real rush. We should do cloud. There should be an imperative to do cloud. The goal is cloud. Most Tokio Marine companies actually avoided what I believe was a trap at that time, to adopt cloud as a goal versus a method that can be used when it makes fiscal and technological and operational sense to use it. And I'm pleased to say that the Tokio Marine Group really has that same philosophy with AI, and that is, we use it when it makes sense. And as the AI, particularly the generative AI piece, begins or continues to develop, we will assuredly increasingly use that for a wide variety of business and digital solutions. But our goal is not AI. Our goal continues to be excellent customer service to our policyholders and our business trade partners, delivering creative products in all of our markets, and basically doing so with high fidelity and always good customer service. Those are our goals. And the beauty of what we see happening with AI is this settling out process, which took easily 7 to 10 years for cloud. And even back in the browser wars, I always use the analogy of, remember the days of having to assemble your browser by getting a plugin to play video and a plugin for sound and then Internet Explorer came out and had it all built in. We're seeing this process unfold very quickly. So this doesn't require a lot of patience, requires a little patience and a lot of experimentation. We're also very clear that it's a method, and that method, as being a regulated industry, has to have a level of maturity, control, and understanding and sustainability before we just start throwing a whole bunch of our regulated transactions into that bucket. So that's sort of where we are philosophically today.
Yeah, on a lighter side, just by agreeing to the plugin part on the browser that you just mentioned, I think we are just dating ourselves, right? You ask somebody about that, they will look at us with a crazy look, right? But you're spot on. I'll shift to a little bit of now moving from this whole theory to application, right? So how important is it for us as a community to think about collaboration between the functions, business, be it CFO organization or COO organization, and then stitching it back to how technology kind of becomes a wrapper around it? What's your view?
Yeah, it's super critical, and I'll take kind of the two layers of that. The business and kind of classic business IT or business IT digital connection is hugely important, especially as it relates to AI, and I would say AI and intelligent automation. When 6, 7, 8 years ago, when RPA was going gangbusters, and by the way, still is. This RPA is not dead. I've read some death notices of RPA. It's like, nope, it's doing just fine. But that was a real important watershed moment to get business and IT collaborating on a process, because we had to understand not just what the screens looked like, but how the business was using it, what they were doing. So that was a good kind of a predecessor to the much more sophisticated conversations we need to have in AI. What I find in Tokio Marine Group, but also in observing friends and colleagues around the industry, is that those carriers and insurance-related companies that have spent a lot of time in RPA and business process optimization, even business process outsourcing, those things, they tend to have a lot of the makings to collaborate really well as it relates to AI, but allowing for others, not IT, not digital people, to have an opinion and bring ideas to the party as to what might work and help them in whatever business problem they're trying to solve or opportunity they're trying to seize has been super helpful. And what we find is whenever that conversation just becomes very organic, very natural, we can have meetings and we can do sessions, but what we really want and what we largely now have is just practitioners talking to practitioners, executives talking to executives, things in and out of market. AI is so broad, it's a type of thing where incremental, I think, is the way to go. Now, incremental can be a big increment, could be a small increment, but we're finding that small incremental changes, improvements, whether AI driven or others, can really ultimately add up to major transformation. And I think AI, and particularly while it's still in this heavy growth and change phase, falls into that as well, where we can adopt pieces and parts, and they serve our transformative goals, and they serve our goals of better customer service, speed to market, all those good things that I talked about.
As we move on, I think now we've spoken about the good part about AI, how we are making it real in an organization, but what are the risks, right? There's a lot of open pieces. You mentioned auditability, right? I mean, that's going to be very critical as we move forward. What is the role on the ethics side of the impact that it creates? So would love to double click and find out what your view is there.
From a technology change rate perspective, we're still in that high growth, high change rate. So when it comes to, again, the type of regulatory environment where, because we can't just slam in tech, we have to go through a process, there's a weight and a rigor necessary to inject any solution, whether it's an InsurTech, XTech, or even just an AI widget, into our systems and workflows. We can't be cavalier about that. We can't cast asunder the core system replacement that we might be doing. Say, no, stop that. We're going to do this over here. It's an and situation. We have to keep doing the enterprise tech. We have to keep doing our business process work and optimizations and our, I'll say, traditional digital work. This is additive. So we have to make sure that we're balancing investments and time. We're balancing risks. And my sense is, and this is exactly what happened in the browser wars, this is exactly what happened in the cloud wars, is that we will see the major AI platforms distill, and they will begin to offer feature and function sets that are inclusive of what today would be found only in a whole bunch of small solutions out in an ecosystem. Now the question is, when do you jump on? Do you want to wait until the very end when everything is perfected? Absolutely not. But I think this year, 2025, and certainly by 2026, we're seeing that settling in, where the major platform providers and some minor and up and coming platform providers, they have enough of a fully rich feature set that it lowers our risk to just kind of adopt into that ecosystem and see where we go. But the regulatory, understanding what it is, being able to explain it, understanding, of course, the traditional kind of Gen AI data issues of bias, toxicity, hallucinations, those have fallen off the radar in a lot of cases, but there's still some challenges there we need to work through. But again, I am bullish for where we are, where we're going over the next year or two. And I think for enterprise technologists, which is really what I am at heart, this more settled situation will allow us to more comfortably and quickly adopt into some of these techniques that are generative AI based in the not too distant future.
If I were to ask you, Bob, what are 3 lessons learned in your journey over the last few years of, living this in reality, what would that be to our listeners?
I guess, one is don't necessarily jump at the first groovy thing that you see, because there's a lot more to the story. And I think that's sort of an axiom for enterprise technology generally, not specific to AI. Secondly is there are really interesting things happening in every industry. So avoiding the myopia of thinking we just do insurance, let's look at insurance solutions. AI cuts across all sorts of interesting things, as do many other solutions. There's a lot we can learn from outside insurance. And thirdly is collaboration. And I don't just mean within Tokio Marine Group, but in general industry. This is all still so new, so quickly moving, so emergent. Just having the conversations and figuring out not just what people are doing, but why, where it's helping, where it's not. I've always said insurance is one of the most generous industries that I'm aware of in terms of people sharing time, thoughts, and AI really doubles down on that. I mean, just the conversations that occur, not in the specific, but in the general, super helpful. So being open, not only to consuming that collaboration, but also contributing to that collaboration is a key learning.
Bob, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for taking the time. Your insights are invaluable, as always. And, I would say thanks again.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. Thanks, Adil.